Welcome to another edition of tutorial video to support you throughout the semester. I wanted to go ahead and show you how to build a text set. So let's get started. Within your module, you're going to have a text set unit set of directions and instructions. Let me show you what I mean. Pardon my desktop, it's crazy in here. So you have a set of first, we're going to build a text set, and within the text set, it's exactly what it says. It's developing a set of text to teach language arts within a content area, or using a content area. Please notice the directions are very specific. We are going to start with building the text set first, and then we'll build the unit. So how do we go about selection of a topic or a title for our unit? So let me help you through this. First, read the directions for the text set. And of course I have the rubric. We're not ready to build the whole text set. We're actually going to start with standards. When you plan, you always want to plan in a UBD style, units by design style, where you look at the end in mind. Normally, a district is paced by using a pacing guide each grade level. Now, your district may not have a pacing guide. Your school may not have a pacing guide, but you can develop your own pacing guide. Here's what I do. I look at my district's pacing guide and I say, okay, what do I need to teach this semester or this 9 weeks? And I begin looking at my scaffolding, my ELA scaffolding. And you found these in your support, in the supplemental resources within your module readings. So I begin looking at the scaffolding document and what I need to teach, because I need to know what the students know prior to coming in, and what is their conceptual understanding and what is the evidence of knowledge. So let me show you what the text set template looks like. And I've started building one for you so you can actually see. And I'm going to go step by step with you throughout the semester on how to build one. So let's get started. Here, this is what you'll see. I opened up in Module 3 of a text set template. Please write all over this template, type in this template, and you'll see exactly what I do. The first thing that I look at before developing a topic, title, introductions, and all that, what are my standards? We're in stage 1 of what are the desired results. We're going to do this in chunks, so don't try to overexert yourself in completing this unit. Each week is designed to help you with developing your unit within chunks. So, of course, I'll put my name, but I came up with the topic and the title later, and these may change throughout my development of the unit. I first decide, okay, Lesson 1 has to be reading informational standards. You may not use standard 10. Please remember that. Now you decide, okay, I'm going to teach social studies content. So am I going to teach my language arts skills, my literacy skills, using the content of social studies or using the content of science? Remember, you're not teaching this lesson or any of these lessons or this unit within a science or social studies classroom. You're teaching this within the language arts classroom. So I began to look at my pacing guide, or in your case, if your teacher says, I want you to work on these standards, I want you to focus on these standards, I begin building my lesson plans, standards. So I know that across the board for reading, whether I'm going to be doing comprehension in lesson plan 1, and then I'm going to be really looking at the disciplinary comprehension in lesson plan 2. And we'll get more into that, so don't stress about that. So I carried over citing textual evidence in both of these lessons. Well, lesson plan 3 focuses on vocabulary, so I can carry it over vocabulary standard here. And lesson plan 4 focuses on writing. So I'm going to put the writing standard here. And I know that this is going to be probably a weak unit that you're building. It's very small. And you can gradually get larger. So I decided to focus on just introductions of topics. Remember, I teach 6th grade. Then I began to look at, okay, I want students to look at key individuals, events. Notice, I may not use an RL at any time in these standards, in this lesson plan, because we're learning how to teach literacy in the informational content areas, or using the information from the content areas. And here's my social studies standard using the Mississippi frameworks, 2011 frameworks. It's civil rights and human rights. I put a speaking and listening in here because when you begin to do disciplinary work, you really rely on discussions and interpretations and stuff. So I put this here. And of course the social studies standards carry over in every lesson. Okay? But remember, you're not teaching this in a social studies classroom. So that's where I began. I began selecting my standards. Then I began developing, pulling text. I began pulling text. Let me show you what I mean. And my standards came straight from the ELA scaffolding. Okay. Here are the frameworks, the social studies frameworks. Of course, you can go look at the Mississippi Science frameworks. And then I began trying to select text. This takes some time. Notice that within your module, I have a Lexile map that helps you understand what the Lexiles look like. And if you go at the end, it tells you the ranges for your guided reading of your Lexile levels. My students range anywhere, 6th grade, ranges anywhere from 925 all the way up to 1050. So those are my Lexile ranges. It gives you a set of example text. Do note, you want to stick with informational text. So you see a lot of fictional text here. So you want to be very careful about not grabbing a fictional text. Okay. I first started with Appendix B, which are a selection, which includes a list of text exemplars or sample performance tasks within these. And I like it because they're very specific to the content areas. So let me show you what I've done. I went down to my grade band, and my grade band is grades 6 through 8, text exemplars. I'm not doing stories. I'm not doing drama. I can use poetry as a supplemental text, but remember, I'm trying to find my mentor text. Here are informational text, and I want to focus on Titanic because I start off my students with learning about civil rights, starting with Titanic. And then we move throughout the civil rights period, the world wars, and the civil rights period. So that's what I began to do. Now, I know Lord Walter, A Night to Remember, is an example of, is part of Titanic. I just remember that, and so I go here, and you have to excuse all of my craziness here with this, but I want to make sure you know everything. So I go here and I type in Walter Lord. I don't know why I said Lord Walter. I go to Walter Lord, and he does A Night to Remember. And if you see, it's at a 950 Lexile level. So this is definitely something that I want to use. However, it is not this right here is a minute by minute account of the Titanic. And I want to be very careful that it's not in my library, so it's something I'm going to have to order. So that's something I'm going to put on my list. And on my list, let me show you what I mean. I've already started compiling a list of, pardon, this takes forever. I already started compiling a list of text. So I scroll down, I go past all this stuff because we're not ready yet, unless you want to start working on it. We want to go to the text selection rationales. This is where you need to begin. Well, I have selected different text. My students, see, you notice that I have a Titanic Voices from the Disaster here. Well, this may be too much for them, so I want to move this text. This can be here as part of my text 5 because it might be too high. And this text that I've chosen is an award winner. And so I would actually can shift these around, and you can play with moving around the text, because I want to choose a mentor text, one that's an informational text, 2 that is on an average Lexile level range for my students, and this one is. So I want to put this one in here, and I'll go back and put the APA citations in here. I can go ahead and get started with that. Lord W. I'm not sure about the date. Let's see. Yes, 2005. And remember, you want to put it in APA citation. And I have provided for you a handy-dandy APA citation help guide there, so you have that. I want to continue placing this book in the APA citation because I want to check it out, but I want to make sure either I check it out at my public library or my school's library and I find this book, because this is something that Common Core said, hey, this is a mentor informational text. So definitely something that I want to check out. Now, I'm not going to be worried about trying to find the publisher and the publication place. I'll go back to that. What I do want to do is make some notes, because these notes will help me go back and put in a rationale. So I know this is going to be a 950 Lexile level. And they call it 950L if you see an L beside it. And I like to read this here as far as what's the summary. But I'm not going to copy this summary over here. Okay? You're beyond that. Don't copy it. Okay? And if you noticed, I'm actually at Lexile.com. And any book that I find, I'm going to put into Lexile.com. Okay? Well, what happens if the book is not in Lexile.com? Or what happens if the book is not on Appendix B and you need to have a book for your content area? Well, what I simply did is, let me close this out. We talked about the Lexile guide. We talked about the unit. Okay. So what I've done, I've actually Googled award-winning books for Titanic for young readers, adolescent readers, because I have 6th grade. So you'd say young readers if you were lower in the lower grades, like K through 2. And if you notice, one of the links that came up was this link for the Young Adult Library Service Association, and this book actually was a finalist. This book that I have down here, it was a finalist. And so I noted within here that this is using my handy dandy Lexile guide. I typed in the title here, and so I said Titanic Voices from Disaster, and when I searched, it gave me the Lexile level here. So that's one way you can search for an award-winning book, by going through and Googling and finding those award-winning books. And it gave me a level here. Now, what you noticed is up here, if I'm going to make this my mentor text, well, I need to make sure that I have said that it is Common Core, State Standards, mentor text cited in Appendix A. Because I want to make a note that I've got to say, okay, this is from Appendix A. This is a good book to read. Now, that's how you do that. Okay? I've already showed you how to do this. Sometimes you want something other than a book. And therefore, I actually have a hard copy of this magazine. And I wanted to know the Lexile level. So you usually can go to the publisher and they can tell you the Lexile level here. And so this magazine, which is quoted here, I put the Lexile level. I made sure that I noted that it was a magazine. And it also, the magazine won Parent Choice Gold Awards. That's very important to put in there. But then not everything has to be a text. So I actually have a picture that I found. And it's this picture here because I decided, because I'm looking at civil rights and human rights, that I wanted to take on, I wanted my unit to kind of morph into human rights and how human rights policies change and government policies change of certain aspects of our society because of disasters. And that's why I began to title this Fate or Reality, Discrimination Among Classes. And that's the direction I'm going to take with my unit. And I actually chose a historical picture of from Library of Congress here. And this picture, of course, won't have this is a political cartoon from one of the newspapers during that time. It was published in 2012 during the actual tragedy time when all the newspapers and stuff were coming out. And this is where I cited it, and I labeled it, it's a historical political cartoon. So definitely one of those things I want to use, because if you go back to the standards, my students here are supposed to interpret information presented in diverse medias and formats, and I can easily carry the standard over here, but I don't want to introduce this picture until I get to lesson 2. So that's why I put it here. And that's a different format of a political cartoon. Now, again, that's how I've done that. Here, I actually could not find, using the Lexile.com site, the Lexile level for Eyewitness Titanic, which is something I wanted to use. So if you cannot find a Lexile level, here is what you would do. I cited that book here, and I simply stated Lexile not given, reading level grade 5, and interest level grades 4 through 8. So then I can actually begin, once I know my learners, because you're going into the classroom starting next week. And maybe this week or next week you can get a description of who your learners are, and go ahead and get that there so you can start this introduction. You want to know the Lexile levels of your students. And if your teacher cannot give you the Lexile level of those students, then you ask for their reading levels. You can convert as well using the Lexile information. Then I actually start taking my notes and I follow these directions to begin building my rationale. So your goal this week is to look at standards in review. We want to select what standards do we need to teach. This needs to be maybe some collaboration between you and your language arts teacher. What standards need to be taught. You can even include them as to what topic area, science or social studies. Because remember, you're not teaching these lessons in your science or social studies classroom. It's in the language arts classroom. So choose your topic. I did Titanic. Make sure you're choosing your standards to back up that content area of where you're teaching the content. And then begin selecting your text. When you're selecting your text, you want your very first text to either be an award-winning book or actually be from the Common Core State Standard Mentor text. You do not want every single one of these to be a book. Every single one of these should not be a picture. You want diversity. Like I may go back in here and add a sixth text where it's a video. You don't want every one of these to be a website. Notice this is not a website. This is a picture. Okay? I don't rely very heavily on websites at all, especially in social studies when we're talking about social studies. Okay, so go ahead and begin thinking about your topic, your standards, your text that you want to start using, and start building your text set. Everything that you need is in here in the module for you. And if you need help, come see me in one of the office hours, or email me or put it on chat. Well, I hope this has been informative and help you get started with your text set. Thanks, and have a good night.